Welcome back to the Colossal Color Showdown, and this is the final episode of the season 2 of this series. And thank you so much for coming all the way through 20 episodes of taking a good look at these colors. It's been a fantastic journey. It's been amazing. I will gush about that later on at the end of this video, but let's carry on taking a good look at the Pyrrole Reds first. We have the 11 brands we saw from last episode, and this is the Gradation. Now, Gradation was very interesting because they behaved so differently depending on the brand. And I've marked the brands that moved very fast across the page. And not surprisingly, QoR does travel very fast, so does Schmincke, which I was slightly more surprised. The Daniel Smith, the MaimeriBlue, and the Da Vinci, you can see the speed at which these paints moved, because you can see these, let's give you a closer look, these vertical lines happening, and that is usually a result of the pigment moving super fast across the paper as you wet them. As I always say with Gradation, if you want a better control of how your paint gradates, then what you're looking for is this 4 very clear stages of gradation, because then that means that you're going to be in control of it rather than it being in the control of the gradation. And if you want that fine control, then I highly recommend the Mission Gold, because it barely moved at all when you wet the paint, which means the paint is going to stay where you put it. Also, Winsor Newton was very good as well. You can see 4 very clear stages. So if you don't want that kind of vermilion-y look that the Mission Gold brings, but you still want that control, then I highly recommend the Winsor Newton one. I was very disappointed with the Holbein one, because I think out of all of this, it just has no stages. It has this mass tone, and then this whole thing is pretty much the same. But that's not going to give you any control whatsoever. But also, it's not going to be wild like the other ones. It's just this flat wash rather than... I mean, the M. Graham one, you do have less control because it is a fast mover, but this is way more interesting than this. And I would say the Daniel Smith one is interesting as well. You get this 4 very clear, but not quite where I put the water. So the different areas grow a little bit bigger than I left them to be, but it still gives you 4 clear colors. But you know, it'll be a little bit wild in case you want to let the paint do the talking instead. I would say in terms of gradating, M. Graham is definitely the most exciting look, certainly for me, but it just depends on what you're looking for. You might be looking for a very controlled, very fine look as well. And then we have the salt test, and finally, we have some significant reaction to salt, which is nice, because this season, for some reason, have been very unreacting to salt kind of season. I also have to note, when I take the salt off, I always take a palette knife and scrape, and normally you don't see the marks, but I'm not sure if the camera will catch this. There's a lot of mark being left behind. Let's see if I can get it on this camera. See, you see there, you see lots of scratches, and hopefully you'll see it on here as well, which you don't get, or I certainly haven't experienced with other colors. So that's definitely something to be concerned about if you plan to do salt with Pyrrole Reds, is that you're gonna have to figure out a way of removing the salt without leaving scratch marks on your paint. But I loved the reactions that we've got with the Winsor Newton and the MaimeriBlue. I have to say, if you are intimidated by how intense Pyrrole Reds are, and they can be very intense, I would say that this is a lovely softer version. So if you maybe have a less highly tinting palette, or you're just a little bit scared of the bright red, which I can totally understand because it is a strong color, then this is lovely. And with how it reacts to salt, it's really gorgeous. The Winsor Newton reacts to salt as well as a little bit under Schmincke, but I would say out of all this, the MaimeriBlue one is my favorite, which I can't believe I'm saying that, because it's not been the best runner in this season so far. But yeah, this is gorgeous. And then we have the color mixes. And the complementary color to the Pyrrole Red or the PR254 are going to be either the Hooker's Green or somewhere like the Viridian Hue, the Phthalo Green color. Just depends on what kind of neutralized color you would like. But what's really interesting is that I did do these pretty much perfectly neutralized, but they've dried very differently. Some of them are very brown and others are very much more green than how I mixed it to begin with. So there's definitely some color shift that happened. So you might want to, when you do your color mixes, let it do a little swatch and let it dry and make sure it's going to dry how you want it, because I have to say this is the most noticeable color shift I've ever seen in doing 2 seasons of Colossal Color Showdown. But yeah, some of them neutralizes better with the Hooker's Green, like here, but others neutralize better with the Phthalo Green. So, and it also depends on what kind of black or neutralized color you're looking for. The Hooker's Green is going to always give you the warmer neutralized color, and the Phthalo Green is going to give you the more cooler neutralized kind of grayish color. The most interesting reaction in this whole sheet is this. Let's give you a close-up. Can you see this reaction? I have no idea what that is. It's not granulation, because Pyrrole Reds and Phthalo Green shouldn't granulate because neither of them are granulation. Maybe this is what they call flocculation. I'm still a little bit miffed about what flocculation or flocculation. I am so gonna get this video demonetized if I keep saying those words. But yeah, super interesting texture, beautiful. Didn't happen with the others, like with the Hooker's Green. Nothing, as you can see from this. See, there's nothing there, nothing in the yellow or the reds, just in the Viridian Green Hue by Holbein or the Phthalo Green. This is definitely, if you're into texture, something worth taking a closer look at. I would say that the highest tinting strengths were the Daniel Smiths and maybe the Schmincke, but they are all pretty similar in tinting strengths, with the exception of the 2 that we noted, which was the MaimeriBlue and the Holbein. We already knew that was a little bit thinner in paint. What was surprising though was that QoR was noticeably a little lower on tinting strengths than the other high tinting strengths brands. So maybe that's a good one if you want somewhere in between the paler MaimeriBlue and the super intense colors of Daniel Smith and Schmincke. I love the texture that this cauliflowering created as well. It's very, very interesting and it's very hot and fiery. So that might be something you're looking for, is to maybe play with creating on purpose cauliflowering and see what kind of texture you get out of that. You get very misty, mysterious, heavy kind of moods with any of these brands when you mix it with the Viridian Hue. I love this color. It's a nice inky, dark, mysterious kind of color. I love the texture that shows up on here as well. But it's really interesting how when you mix it with the yellow and the Queen Rose, it's super hot colors. There's no doubt on how high the temperature of these colors are. But then you also get this very cool colors mixed with the Viridian Hue. So I would say it's a very versatile mixing color that's going to tune up the result of mixing it with other colors to either be really hot and intense or really cool and mysterious. So you'd have a lot of fun playing about with this paint. If you are wanting to try these Pyrrole Reds but you don't want to commit to having to buy whole tubes at a time, then you're in luck, because this month's dot card is the companion dot card to this episode. You get 8 different Pyrrole Reds. You get Daniel Smith, Holbein, Sennelier, Schmincke, Winsor, Newton, QoR, Mission Gold and Da Vinci. It's a great economical way to be able to test so many different brands, and it costs you less than having to buy a whole tube of just one of these brands. So if you'd like to give this dot card a go, then just head on over to patreon.com/Oto Kano and sign up to the appropriate tiers, and this dot card will be on its way to you very soon. So that's it for the Pyrrole Reds. What did you think of it? Which one is your favourite? I actually quite like the MaimeriBlue. I love how it reacts to the salt. It's very soft, but it reacts. So definitely this if you're a little bit intimidated by other colours. I love the Schmincke for how flat it goes on, and I love any paint that will make my life easier by going down on the paper flatter than other brands, so that I don't get this unevenness happening. Have to say, disappointed with the Holbein, disappointed with the QoR. I don't think QoR, for how expensive it is compared to other brands, certainly in the UK, because of course where you are, the QoR, if you're in America, might be very affordable, but for here in the UK, QoR is very expensive, and I'm like, I want to like QoR because they're incredibly amazing companies and they're very nice people, and as you guys know, I'm going to be transparent with you, they sent me a whole set of their paints, but in this instance, I'm like, there are other colours that do better. Daniel Smith is a good all-rounder in that it's a very intense colour that goes on really smooth, doesn't dry quite as well, certainly not as well as Schmincke does. So I do love Schmincke. So if I were to add a Pyrrole Red to my palette, then I would pick the Scarlet Red by Schmincke over the other brands, just because of how perfectly, I mean, if I just cover this bit, it's so flat and perfect, but you might not want that flat. You might want more texture. And if you want texture, definitely play around with the Roman Szmal, with the Viridian, or just mix it with other colors and see what crazy flocculation kind of type texture you can get with it. The Sennelier also gave good texture as well as Winsor Newton is definitely worth testing out, putting cauliflowering in on purpose to see what kind of visual texture you can get from that. So that is it for the season 2 of Colossal Color Showdown. Thank you so very much for coming all this way with me, and I'm just so grateful that you watched all 20 episodes on top of the 20 episodes that we already had from season 1. Thank you so much for your support throughout the season. I've loved your comments and you guys are so full of knowledge. Thank you so very much. Do let me know in the comments down below which one is your favorite, and if this video have changed your mind or not. And if you want to buy these paints, I have links down below to where you can get them on Jackson's, Blick and Amazon US as well. That is it. Excitingly, from next week we are going to be starting to take a look at all the colors from the QoR series in depth, in detail, and see what they are like. So do look forward to that. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I will speak to you in the next video. Bye!